Four injured in a shooting incident at Quarry Bay Park. Leighton Asia submits to the government its report on the Hong Kong Station steel bars controversy. And in the UK, the House of Commons votes to support a third runway at Heathrow Airport.
Good evening and welcome. 4 people have been injured in a shooting incident at Quarry Bay Park this afternoon. 2 of them remain in critical condition this evening. Police later arrested a 44-year-old female suspect. As Pinky Wong reports, the victims and the suspect are related.
The park was on lockdown after the shooting, with police officers armed with submachine guns standing guard. Firefighters and paramedics were also on standby. Someone shot 4 people with a gun at Quarry Bay Park at around 3 p.m. The police later arrested a female suspect at Phase 4 of City Plaza in Taikoo Shing. Authorities said officers found on her a handgun and about 40 rounds of ammunition. The 4 victims, aged between 50 and 72, were taken to Parmala Youth Nettlesault Eastern Hospital for treatment. At least one of them suffered a gunshot wound to the head. The police later confirmed the victims and the shooter are relatives.
The attack is a long attack without any syndication. We believe the motive of the attack was family conflict, and the relationship between the assailant and the injured person are family members.
Sources indicated that the 4 injured are siblings, while the suspect, who is the niece of the victims, acted upon family matters. The 5 were at a restaurant dealing with the estate of a relative who failed to reach a consensus. They then went to the park to continue with their discussion, and the suspect then allegedly opened fire. The police are now trying to find out how the shooter acquired the firearm used in the shooting. Pinky Wong, TVB News.
In Beijing, Vice Premier Han Zheng today met with visiting Chief Executive Carrie Lam. That's where the two discussed the Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau, Greater Bay Area Development Plan. Caleb Leung has more.
The meeting took place at Ziguangge, or the Pavilion of Purple Light, within the Zhongnanhai Leadership Compound. This is Carrie Lam's first meeting with Han Zheng since he took charge of Hong Kong and Macau affairs. The Vice Premier praised Lam for her administration's work, including efforts to promote economic development and improve people's livelihood. Han also stressed the development of the Greater Bay Area is a strategy conceived by President Xi Jinping and is related to the long-term prosperity of Hong Kong. After the meeting, Lam said they talked about how Hong Kong can contribute to, as well as benefit from, the Greater Bay Area development. She also spoke on a range of local issues, including the so-called vacancy tax. The proposed tax would target developers hoarding newly built flats. Despite strong opinions from some developers, the chief executive said she's prepared to meet the challenge as the public interest should come first. She also wished the victims of today's shooting at Quarry Bay Park a speedy recovery. Carrie Lam originally planned to return to Hong Kong at the end of her trip to Europe, but announced last Sunday that she will instead go to Beijing after her European visit. She is set to return home in the early hours of Wednesday. Caleb Leung, TVB News.
Well, the government has received a report from Leighton Asia, the main contractor of the MTR Hong Kong Station expansion project, on the steel bars that were cut short. But the project subcontractor spoke out today, expressing doubt whether the MTR Corporation is keen to find out the truth. Sharon Tang has more.
Secretary for Development Michael Wong announced the government has received Leighton Asia's report at around 5 p.m. He said the authorities will impartially and fairly treat the contractors involved in the incident. Speaking of the most severe penalty, Wong said a contractor found to be at fault could be barred or suspended from carrying out construction works. But the guessing game continues as stakeholders of the project have different answers to questions regarding how many steel bars were cut short and who is ultimately responsible. Adding more to that is subcontractor China Technology. The company pointed the finger at different parties today. It disagrees with the MTR Corporation, which said it spotted only 17 steel bars that had been cut short. China Technology added that even though the railway company had hired an independent party to perform a safety load test, it questioned whether that would adequately reflect the long-term safety of the platform level in question. China Technology also noted that the MTR Corporation has only 11 frontline supervisors. Besides carrying out checks on completed works, holding meetings and patrolling every day, they only conducted on-site inspections for less than half an hour a day. China Technology said during a conference call with the MTR Corporation on June 12 about the shortened steel bars, its representatives were interrupted by their counterparts from Leighton Asia due to confidentiality reasons. Leighton Asia said they would not comment further. Meanwhile, Acting Chief Executive Matthew Cheung stressed there will be no compromise when it comes to safety issues. He vows to follow up on the array of scandals seriously, but it depends on legal advice on whether to make the report public. Sharon Tang, TVB News.
The MTR Corporation and the government came under fire at a Yuen Long District Council meeting today. They were accused of keeping the public in the dark regarding the sinking of bridge columns at the West Rail Line's Yuen Long station. The railway company discovered 5 years ago that the subsidence had reached a safety threshold of 20 millimeters. That prompted the MTRC to ask the developer of a nearby housing project to stop construction works. It wasn't until October 2017 when reinforcement work for the columns began. District councilors are upset about the authorities' failure to notify the public of the incident over the years. Still, the railway company stressed it has handled the matter properly.
Once we detected there's a individual columns has a settlement, and we already notified building department, and when it reached 20 millimeter, we has asked for stop work. And I think this has proven that MTR has taken a very prudent approach to handle all the construction work along the railway.
Europe's biggest airport is about to get even bigger. British lawmakers voted in favor of building a new runway at London's Heathrow Airport. The move comes after decades of delays and policy U-turns.
Order!
It's being called the most important transport decision in a generation.
The ayes to the right, 415. The noes to the left, 190.
By an overwhelming margin, British lawmakers decided to support the expansion of Heathrow with a third runway.
The ayes have it. The ayes have it.
The decision follows decades of studies and debates over how and where to add new airport capacity in densely populated southeast England. If it goes ahead, it will be the first full-length runway built in the London area in 70 years. Ahead of the vote, supporters made the stakes clear.
This is a historic moment for this country. It is a moment when we call on government and all members across this House to show leadership. Any failure to support this MPS will have detrimental effects across the whole country.
But the roughly $19 billion project has long divided Parliament regardless of party lines. Many are opposed to the cost and the threat of extra noise and air pollution.
I have a sense that there will be a great many more debates on this important matter, in which we will hear from the Right Honourable Lady and from others similarly aggrieved this evening.
Heathrow's most high-profile opponent, Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson, was out of the country and so missed the vote. His absence allowed him to sidestep the embarrassment of either not supporting the government or breaking his word. Ahead of yesterday's vote, campaigners against the new runway staged a lie-in protest at the House of Commons. One environment group calls the decision morally reprehensible. Many elected officials are promising to take legal action against the project. But business groups strongly back the decision. They say the increased capacity generated at Heathrow will be like putting out an open for business sign as Britain prepares to leave the European Union.
We make our way to Thailand, where the search for a youth football team missing in a cave complex is now into its third day. Navy divers have been called in to help. About a dozen rescuers entered the chamber. Overnight rain flooded a portion of the cavern, halting rescue efforts temporarily. The soccer squad, made up of 12 players aged 11 to 16, went missing on Saturday. Officials hope the youngsters and their coach have found refuge in a vacant part of the cave. There has been no sign of them since then, except their belongings left outside the cave.
South Korea and North Korea today held high-level talks on connecting and modernizing railways running across their border. A meeting took place at the Peace House on the southern side of the border village of Panmunjom. The two sides are exploring the possibility of linking up their railways on the eastern and western corridors of the Korean peninsula. The talks have been arranged as a follow-up to a Panmunjom summit agreement reached by leaders of the two Koreas back in April.
The migrant crisis in America is so big, the U.S. military is now housing the overflow. This comes as lawmakers gave a thumbs up to facilities that house children.
Two military bases in Texas are now housing the overflow of detained migrants.
We'll provide whatever support the Department of Homeland Security needs in order to house the people that they have under their custody.
After questioning children at one facility in Florida, lawmakers discovered, despite media reports, they're not ripped from their parents and they regularly call family.
The children in this facility are being treated exceptionally well. They were in classrooms learning, and they all expressed that they were just happy and at peace being at this facility.
Just like at Homestead is that they get 2 calls twice a week for 10 minutes at a time.
Plus, the Department of Health and Human Services insists parents know exactly where their children are.
All children in our care, the first thing we do when they come to an HHS shelter within 24 hours is ensure they are connected to a parent or a family loved one so that the parent or the family member can know the child is safe and secure and where they are.
U.S. Border Patrol showed reporters how human smugglers benefit from the wall-less border in Texas.
The smugglers will bring them across here and basically tell them, go up to the road, follow the road, and you'll soon see a Border Patrol agent.
Meantime, a class action lawsuit now demands all children be reunited with their parents within 30 days.
Still ahead in tonight's China hints at future Airbus purchases amid trade tensions with the U.S. And Prince William becomes the first British royal to make an official visit to Israel.
究竟有雞先定有蛋先？有熱碟幾先？哇！定個煎鵝幾先呢？有黑洞先定有黑頭先？導演，我行先定企先啊？你企埋一邊先。有陰先定陽先？救阿媽先定救老婆先 ？Sorry， 我唔識游水喎。EPS Easy Cash 買嘢加攞錢都可以一齊先。超過2500間商鋪都用得，咁正，咁去邊間先呢？
Well, Premier Li Keqiang told visiting French Prime Minister Edouard Philippe that China is working on improving market access. Philippe is on a 4-day visit to China to improve bilateral business ties and business partnerships between the two countries. Responding to Philippe's concerns over forced technology transfer, Li said that French businesses should take the responsibility for protecting their intellectual property. He also assured him that they could file lawsuits for protection. Li also hinted at future Airbus purchases. That's a far different tone than has been taken with the U.S. China has warned that U.S. plane builder Boeing could become a casualty if the two countries don't avert a trade war.
Britain's Prince William started his visit to Israel by honoring Holocaust victims. William arrived in Israel on Monday for the first official visit by the British royal to Israel and the Palestinian territories. After the Holocaust Museum tour, the prince was welcomed by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at his official residence in Jerusalem. During his 4-day visit, he plans to meet with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. He'll also meet with Palestinian youngsters in the occupied West Bank.
Prosecutors today have withdrawn a robbery charge against Ramanjit Singh, a Hong Kong-born Indian man who is wanted by Interpol for terrorism-related activities. A 29-year-old Singh was originally charged with 1 count of robbery in a case involving 2 currency exchange store staff and 450 million Japanese yen. Meanwhile, Indian authorities have applied for the extradition of Singh for charges including assisting a jailbreak. Singh was also charged locally for handling stolen goods, with the trial still ongoing at the district court.
The Ombudsman has decided to investigate the government's system of approving increases in school fees. In the current academic year, 147 schools were given approval to raise school fees, with some charging more than $200,000 per student a year. That includes private, international, and direct subsidy scheme schools. The Ombudsman is concerned the Education Bureau's approval mechanism is lax and lacks transparency. Secretary for Education Kevin Yung said his bureau will fully cooperate with the investigation. And that's our news.
Good night.